One day, I watched a news report about the Egyptian authorities storming the Cairo garbage areas and confiscating and culling the garbage collectors' pigs, all their livestock. This was during the outbreak of the international swine flu pandemic. I had already heard about the Zabaleen, Cairo's informal garbage collectors. I was curious, and I decided to visit the so-called garbage city, and my life changed forever. I'd never before seen a place as dirty and as terrible. However, among pigs, smoke and fire, children eating from the garbage, dogs copulating in the streets, and rats chasing cats, I found something that I had lost many years before. In people's faces, shy, gentle handshakes, curious and radiating smiles and laughter, I found real life. Mussa was my best friend in the garbage area. He was a shy 23-year-old guy who came to me and asked if I could teach him English. He invited me home to his family and showed me around in his area. We spent a lot of time together at cafes, smoking water pipe, watching American wrestling on TV, and playing cards with the other garbage collectors. I taught him a long list of irregular English verbs, while he taught me foul language in Upper Egyptian dialect. I remember he had a problem learning the word downtown, which instead pronounced town down. Mussa was working together with his 1-year older brother Saman, cutting beer and tuna fish cans on a shredder machine. They were always fighting each other, and they were not able to work together. Instead, they had to work separated, Mussa in the morning and Saman in the afternoon. In fact, I never saw them together not fighting. Sometimes they were standing in the street, face to face, just screaming at each other, until somebody, usually their dad or a neighbor, had to pull them away from each other. People feared that one day they might kill each other with a metal stick. Saman had already married, and his wife had just borne him a son. While Mussa, on the other hand, was still struggling hard to be able to afford the necessary gold and jewelry as a dower for his fiancée, which his dad had promised to help finance. Mussa's family raised animals inside their home, pigs, goats, and cows. The cows were living in Mussa's room, and one of them, a little calf, used to wake up Mussa by pulling his mattress and licking his hands in the morning. Mussa spent hours talking to his little calf, and the calf would reply. When she grew older and bigger, Mussa's mother one day told him to take her to the Friday market and sell her. The calf gave Mussa a sad look and cried, telling him she did not want to be sold. She much rather preferred to stay with him. Then Mussa went home alone, and he cried also. Mussa introduced me to Mr. Nauruz, one of the elders in the Zabaleen community. He was wearing a turban, a jalabeya, and a thick upper Egyptian moustache, and he agreed to rent me an apartment in his family building. The apartment was very, very dirty, yet I felt at home. Yet after I had lived in my new apartment for only about 2 weeks, Mussa called me late one evening, telling me to gather all my belongings and move out of the apartment immediately. In the garbage city, there are many government informants, and one of them had gossiped to police about a certain foreigner who was living among the garbage collectors. Police had come to Mr. Nauruz and interrogated about me. Was I a spy, a terrorist, or a Jew? They had asked, and they forced him to pay a big bribe. In the next moment, I was standing in the street with all my belongings, but Mussa helped me find another apartment in the garbage area. Sometimes I brought Mussa with me to our performances at the opera. With the help of family and friends, he got just the right clothes, a jacket, a tie, and a pair of nice shoes to be admitted. And he was quite the man while strolling through the Cairo opera house the first time. My Egyptian colleagues were shocked when they learned that I had brought a garbage collector to our performance. I, however, took a certain pride in living my double life between the opera and the garbage collectors. The Cairo Opera House was built in the middle of the 80s during the booming yuppie time as a part of the Egyptian government's prestigious beautification plan. Mussa, on the other hand, since the age of 7, used to roam the streets of downtown, or town down if you want, looking for waste to collect for their animals at home. One evening, without a warning, my phone rang. It was Mussa in the other end, and he was screaming, "They shot my brother! They shot my brother!" Earlier that day, the Zabaleen had taken to their streets, demonstrating against Christian discrimination after a church had been burned down. It had been only weeks after the beginning of the Egyptian revolution, and it all started when the radicals had found out about a romantic relation between a young Christian man and a Muslim girl. When the Zabaleen were demonstrating, a large crowd gathered around them. Rumors spread that the Zabaleen were marching towards nearby Said Aisha to set fire to a mosque there, and a crowd of 3,000 men began attacking them. Soon after, the Egyptian army arrived, and no less than 10 military tanks rolled into the garbage collectors area. And when it became dark, they started shooting people. Children as young as 12 years old were targeted, and the shooting continued until late in the evening when 9 Zabaleen had been killed and more than 200 were injured. One of the men who had been shot by the army was Saman, Mussa's brother, who had left his wife and son at home to take part in the fighting. He was hit by a bullet in his chest and died on the spot. The hospital was short of everything: doctors, medications, and spare blood. The scenery resembled a war zone with hundreds of relatives in despair looking for their loved ones. Mussa held the murdered body of his brother to his and screamed. funeral the next morning, men and women were separated. The men sat on chairs in a line in the street. Family, friends, and neighbors stopped by. Hands were shaken, but not a word was spoken. Their silence was emphasized by their women, whose place was in the corner, sitting crying, sometimes screaming. With Zabaleen-'s death, Mussa's family became desperate, as he was now the only son left to provide for the whole greater family of 11. When I later asked Mussa about the Egyptian revolution, he answered, "If the difference between before and after the revolution is my brother dead or alive, I prefer no revolution." الوادية متاجد في البدرية وديك بيدن كوكو كوكو في الفجرية يلا بينا لا بابا لا يا سنايا يا يكال صباحك صباح الخير يستاتيا. على النهار فتح يا عليم والجيب ما فيش ولا مليم من فاليومين دول شفتالتيم زي سنة المظالم ده صبر أمره طال وعيش بعد وفي الحال يلي معك المال برضو الفقير لرب كريم برضو الفقير لرب كريم.